Hello and welcome to the latest episode of the Low Budget Review Show. I am your host, Eric Smith, and today I'm talking about Low Blasphemy by Judith Sonnet. And this is from Madness Heart Press. And there's the little logo. This is the new edition. And I'm just going to go with back cover copy. Something evil is coming to Kissing Brook, Missouri. Reese Karkoff's life derailed when her mother killed her father. Now she lives on a defunct farm in Missouri with her aunt and her cousin, who treat her as one of their own. Reese thinks her mother's violence is behind her, but she's unaware of the cult that has moved into the woods beside the farm. Vagabonds and psychopaths, the cult worships a demon god whose blood changes those who ingest it, and they are mutating the good people of Kissing Brook, house by house, shop by shop, person by person, turning decent, humble folks into maniacal monsters. As the evil spreads through the town, Reese and her family will have to fight for survival. Can they avoid falling victim to the cult and their twisted deity? Warning! This book contains extreme gore, violence, sexual abuse, and blasphemy. Read with caution. Well, that back cover copy gave away a lot more than I would have, but there you have it. That's on the publisher. So, for the too long didn't watch folks, I gave this book 5 out of 5. I loved it. Possibly my favorite Judith Sonnet. Definitely my favorite non-pastiche Judith Sonnet. I really love Hell and Hell City of the Dead, City whatever it's called, her two Italian horror novels. Absolutely love those. But taking those off the table, definitely my favorite Judith Sonnet at this point. Wonderful, wonderful cover. Judith is an extreme horror author, generally. There's some back and forth about the difference between extreme horror and splatterpunk. Now, if I'm not mistaken, extreme horror is essentially gore for the sake of gore. I'm just going to write a fun, crazy, gory horror story, see how wild I can get with the body fluids. And splatterpunk, there's more of a message. And Judith Sonnet is known for her extreme books. But I would say that this is, and I think Judith says that this is splatterpunk and not extreme. It is extreme, but it's a splatterpunk book that just has extreme gore, violence, sexual abuse, and blasphemy. And I would agree with that. There's more, I want to say more story, but I don't know if that's completely accurate. Judith Sonnet has books that are just, here's something fun and gross and disgusting. The first book I read by her, Chainsaw Hooker, has great characters, has an interesting story, but I think it's about the gore. Something like Splattersaurus. Let's write a gory killer dinosaur book. And there's absolutely nothing wrong with that. I enjoy everything I've read from her to varying degrees. But this, there's much more to it, I think. One could possibly find a message in here. But as with pretty much everything I've read from Judith Sonnet, her best strength, is her characters. This book, it starts off, Reese is 10 years old for the majority of the book. When she was 5, this tragedy happened. And we start the book with that tragedy. And then we jump to her being 10 years old, living with her aunt and her cousin, who she considers her mom and her sister. And we meet her friends at school. We meet the neighbor guy who has a strictly platonic, loving platonic relationship with Reese's aunt. And Reese and Paisley, her cousin, look to him as almost a father figure. Paisley, again, is her cousin. She's in high school. We meet her boyfriend, August, her best friend, Keegan, and her other friends. And one of the things I like about this is that none of these characters are outcasts. She could have made Reese that outcast character because of the tragedy in her past. But she's not. When we see her in school, she has friends. Nobody's treating her poorly. And so while all there's this craziness going on in the woods and in some other scenes with other ancillary characters, Judith Sonnet is building our main character base and making us care about these characters and fear for what may happen to them. And that, as I said, is her greatest strength. Her character work is fantastic. Even in her little tiny novellas, for the most part, I'm thinking of the Gobbler. Is Gobbler Fuck Your Thanksgiving? Tiny, tiny little book. And she takes the time to quickly develop the characters so we know them and we care about them. And when she's got a bigger book like this, she really has the time. But it doesn't drag. The pacing in this book is fantastic. And we don't get info dump. Here's a character. Here's everything you need to know about them. It's spaced out. We learn bits and pieces as we're going along. And I just absolutely loved this book. It is extreme. While I was reading it, there are elements to it, I would think. My friend Kaylee Dobbs of Happy Goat Horror, I would think, hey, I think Kaylee would dig this book. It's got elements that I know she's a fan of. And then I'd read some super extreme part where body fluids are flying. I was like, oh, I don't know if I can recommend this to Kaylee. I know she's not a fan of the extreme stuff. But I think she's a fan of Judith Sonnet. So Low Blasphemy. As I said, this is the second edition, I believe. And so 5 out of 5 stars. Low Blasphemy, Judith Sonnet, Madness Heart Press. Highly, highly recommended if you have the stomach for the gross stuff. It's well worth your time to read this book. And Judith Sonnet has been going over her older catalog and cleaning up some of the stories, by which I mean finding any typos, any mistakes, looking for that kind of thing, not cleaning up the gore or anything. Tightening up stories and re-releasing them. So a lot of her older stuff is becoming available again in newer editions, and pretty sure this is the second edition. Cover by Luke Spooner. Great work. Yes, it says second edition. So, man, support Judith. Read a fantastic, crazy, gory, over-the-top, but deeper than just gore for gore's sake type of story. Yeah, it's wild. Absolutely wild. I loved every second of it. Don't want to cover up her name. There you go. All right. Recommendations. Well, I recommend Hell and Hell, City of the Dead, or whatever. Does this have a list of Judith's books, or is it going to tell me what else? No. I can't remember the subtitle of the second Hell book, but fantastic love letters to Lucio Fulci, Italian horror cinema. Absolutely recommend those. But if you want extreme horror, The Resurrectionist by Wrath James White. let's see. Since this deals with a cult, trying to think. Oh, I'm trying to think of an Edward Lee book with a cult in it. Off the top of my head. And I'm old and can't remember things. So, well, City Infernal, the Infernal series. So you could go with City Infernal, Infernal Angel, the third one that I can't remember the title of. Then there's the Lottery, or whatever it's Lucifer's Lottery, and then Lake Infernal, and I'm trying to read Warlock Infernal, Christine Morgan, continuing Edward Lee's Infernal series. I would recommend, well, at least the first one. I haven't read Warlock Infernal yet, so I can't, in good conscience, recommend it. But I'm sure it's good. I love Christine Morgan's stuff. So there's some suggestions for you. If you like this, if you like the sound of this, check out that stuff. Yeah, man, I don't know why Wrath James White's Resurrectionist for some reason resonates with me as a book to recommend with this one. Question for this video: are you a fan of splatterpunk? Are you a fan of extreme horror? I've probably asked this before. If you are, who are your favorite splatterpunk authors? Who are your favorite extreme horror authors? If you're not, why not? Do you just not like the gross stuff? Do you feel it's cheap? All that stuff. Let me know in the comments below. If you have any comments, questions, corrections, please put those in the comments below. Comments are open for spoilers. Just post spoiler warning. We try to be polite here at the Low Budget Review Show. Please like, share, and subscribe. All the usual YouTube stuff. And if you care to follow me on other social media, my Twitter is @Ronan5757. My Instagram, where I post pictures of books, comic books, board games, fuzzy animals, is Eric Smith 5757. That's Eric with a K, ERIKSMITH 5757. At Bluesky, I am at EL Smith. That's all I have for you. This has been the Low Budget Review Show. I have been Eric Smith. And until next time, read more books.